Usually when you travel, a red light at the customs checkpoint just means like a minor inconvenience.
Right. It's a totally binary thing.
Yeah, exactly. You grab your suitcase, you press the button, and if you get the red light, an agent pokes around your socks for a minute. You either have something to declare or you don't. But imagine it's December 2025.
Okay.
You're at the San Jose del Cabo airport, and you are recovering from a recent knee replacement, a heart attack, and a stroke.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
It is. So you press the button, you get the red light, and suddenly customs agents are accusing you of smuggling drugs, and they're undeniable proof for this. Your cinnamon-flavored Altoids.
I mean, it sounds completely absurd, but the escalation of these encounters is genuinely terrifying. In that specific case, the agents actually deny you your necessary prescribed beta blockers.
Wait, really? They withheld medication?
Yeah. And it gets worse. When you try to take a picture of their name tags, an agent physically grabs your phone, deletes the photos, and even empties the recently deleted folder.
That is just, that's wild.
Right. You're detained for over 5 hours, threatened with a 48-hour incarceration, while an agent literally yells that because you are a foreigner, you have absolutely no rights in that room.
And the underlying motive for all this manufactured panic? They were simply waiting for a bribe. You aren't watching a cartel thriller here. You are caught in the crosshairs of a newly systemic shakedown at Mexican customs. So, welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Our mission today is unpacking a massive stack of recent reports, news articles, travel advisories, basically a ton of sources from late 2024 through early 2026, detailing this huge surge in customs shakedowns at Mexican ports of entry.
It's a really concerning trend for anyone traveling right now.
It absolutely is. And that's why this isn't just a warning, it's a survival guide. By the end of this deep dive, you will know exactly how to cite specific customs laws to shut down an aggressive inspection. We're also going to give you the exact step-by-step reporting process to hold corrupt agents accountable if a forced payment actually happens.
Because honestly, whether you are a tourist flying into Cancun for like a corporate retreat, or you're a paisano driving home for the holidays through Tijuana, the customs checkpoint has increasingly become this high-pressure gauntlet.
Okay, let's unpack this. What is the standard playbook here? How does a corrupt aduana official actually operate?
Well, the core tactic used by corrupt customs officials relies on what we can call the sequestration threat. They manufacture this highly pressurized, time-sensitive trap.
Right.
And if you think about it, the physical layout of the airport aids this isolation perfectly. You have just grabbed your bags, you are in this sterile, windowless zone, your ground transportation is waiting outside, and you cannot go backward.
It's pure psychological pressure.
Right.
They're betting that you will happily pay a $200 to $500 fine rather than risk missing your flight or losing your shuttle.
Exactly. They know you just want to get to your hotel.
Yeah, or like having your personal items outright seized. Look at what happened to Tammy Levent in Cancun back in June 2024.
Oh, that's a classic example.
It really is. She is a travel professional with 29 years of experience. She travels down for business, gets pulled aside, and agents initially try to tax some awards she brought with her.
Right, which they can't do.
Exactly. When they realize they can't legally do that, they immediately pivot to her electronics. They claim it is illegal to bring in both a laptop and an iPad.
And that pivot is crucial to understand. It is an intentional misrepresentation of the rules, specifically designed to push her over the duty-free limit.
Just completely making it up on the fly.
Yeah, they threatened her with fines up to $1,000 or even arrest, especially when she asked to call her embassy. So fearing for her safety in that isolated room, she reluctantly paid a $170 fine just to be allowed to leave the airport.
That is just extortion. And it's not just tourists, right? They do this to Mexican nationals as well. I was looking at a report from El Debate that highlighted Alejandro.
The guy traveling from Utah.
Yeah, exactly. A paisano traveling from Utah through Tijuana down to Sinaloa. He had receipts proving his Christmas gifts were well under the $300 land crossing limit. But the agents completely ignored the receipts.
Did they even look at the items?
No. They didn't even bother opening the boxes to look at the merchandise. They blindly charged him a 19% tax. He literally had to mail his own luggage via a domestic parcel service just to get it home.
That is incredibly frustrating.
And in that same report, there is Yolanda. She flew from Vegas to Tijuana specifically to avoid the recent violence on the roads in Sinaloa. And her entire travel plan was derailed when agents blocked her gifts.
It's highly opportunistic, but it's also remarkably brazen.
Oh, for sure.
There is a viral YouTube video from the Monterrey airport that exposes the actual mechanics of this. A traveler is officially charged a 200 peso fee on a receipt.
Which is what, like $10?
Yeah, basically. But then the agent explicitly directs him to go to a separate, unmonitored area and hand over 5,000 pesos in cash just to be allowed to leave.
Wow. 5,000 pesos.
And look at Nogales. A man in civilian clothes boarded a Tufesa bus and literally collected $5 from every single passenger to supposedly avoid an inspection. And he did this right in front of the authorities.
See, that feels exactly like a predatory high-speed sales funnel. You know, like a boiler room tactic.
Oh, absolutely.
They isolate the traveler, manufacture an immediate crisis, induce panic, and basically force you to close the deal before your brain can even critically process what has happened.
And is exactly what it is.
But I have to ask, is this just opportunistic greed from a few rogue agents? Or is there a systemic formula driving these shakedowns across different airports?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is absolutely systemic. And it is rooted in major structural changes to border management. Since 2022, the Mexican Navy CMAR and the military have taken over the management of many airport and border customs operations.
And just to be completely clear to you listening, we are just reporting the timeline of this military takeover as context provided by the sources. We aren't taking any political stance on the policy itself, but the shift in administration is a documented fact.
Right, exactly. So the stated goal of that policy was to improve security and root out previous civilian corruption. But what emerged instead is this really bizarre tension between security enforcement and revenue quotas.
Revenue quotas, like they have to hit certain numbers.
Yeah, the funding models and internal metrics shifted. Commanders began demanding metric-based proof of effectiveness from their floor agents. This usually came in the form of recorded seizures or high tax collection.
So they need to justify their presence.
Precisely. So agents under immense pressure to hit these quotas began targeting easy marks, which usually means tourists carrying multiple electronics.
I was reading the Periodico AM report on this, and the detail that completely blew my mind wasn't just the extortion by the agents. It was the logistical sophistication of how organized crime has capitalized on this transition.
Oh, the database breach.
Yes. The cartels have essentially hacked or bribed their way into the official aduana databases, creating a parallel tax system.
Yeah.
How does a federal agency even begin to plug a data leak that massive?
It is a staggering breach. Criminal groups use that compromised data to see exactly who is importing what. They physically handed out a catalog to maquiladoras, the manufacturing plants, transport companies, and customs agencies.
Wait, a physical catalog?
Yes. By late 2024, this cartel catalog had 215 specific products with assigned extortion fees.
It is literally a mafia price menu. I mean, if you want to bring in a medium tractor, you pay the legal tax to the government, plus a $350 fee to the criminal group. A motorcycle, $300. A truck with cattle, $1,000.
It operates entirely parallel to the official system. And because they have the official customs data, a transport company will literally get a WhatsApp message demanding payment that perfectly matches their confidential government declaration.
That is terrifying.
It is. That level of systemic integration is what makes the environment so volatile. But if we bring the focus back to the airport tourist experience, if you are flying into Cabo or Cancun, you are not importing a tractor.
Right, you just have your suitcase and, like, a beach read.
Yeah.
Maybe an iPad.
Exactly. The way this systemic issue trickles down to the individual traveler is through the weaponization of uncertainty.
Weaponization of uncertainty. I like that phrase.
Agents operate in an information vacuum. They know you don't carry the Mexican tax code in your back pocket, so they use your lack of specific legal knowledge to corner you.
Right. They'll use ignorance as a shield. They'll pull out your 3-year-old GoPro and claim it as a professional cinematic device worth $1,500.
Which is ridiculous.
Totally ridiculous.
Oh.
But suddenly, you are way over your $500 duty-free limit for merchandise.
Yeah.
And they do it because they know you aren't going to sit there and argue the mathematical depreciation of consumer electronics while your shuttle driver is threatening to leave without you.
Which is exactly why defending yourself requires completely disrupting that timeline.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How do you actually defend yourself in the moment?
Well, if their entire strategy relies on your ignorance of the law and your rush to catch a flight, you have to slow the interaction down and strip away their leverage. You have to shift the dynamic from an informal, shadowy threat to a formal, documented administrative process.
Okay, so carrying the actual law with you seems like the first logical step. The sources specifically recommend downloading the SAT list of permitted items.
Yes, exactly.
And for context, SAT is the Servicio de Administración Tributaria, which is basically the Mexican IRS. They publish a document called Equipaje de Pasajero, or passenger luggage. But how does that actually play out in practice? Carrying the SAT printout makes sense, but how do agents typically react when a tourist suddenly starts citing federal codes? Does that de-escalate the situation, or does it just agitate them further?
In almost all documented cases, it forces an immediate de-escalation.
Really? Just showing them the paper.
Yeah. Bullies look for easy targets. When you calmly pull out a physical piece of paper or a downloaded PDF and point directly to the rule that explicitly allows you to bring in, quote, 2 cameras and 1 portable computer equipment, it immediately signals that you are not an easy mark.
You are stripping away that information vacuum they rely on.
Exactly. You are proving you know the rules.
Okay, let's talk about the valuation trick, because that seems to be their favorite loophole right now.
Oh, definitely.
If they try to tax my scratched-up 3-year-old GoPro based on its brand-new retail price, how do I mathematically shut that down? The duty-free allowance for merchandise is $500, but how does the law actually view used personal items?
This is where you cite Article 150 of the Customs Law.
Article 150, got it.
This specific article dictates how items are valued, and it explicitly protects used personal items. If an agent tries to value a used camera at its original manufacturer's suggested retail price, you calmly explain that under Article 150, its current depreciated value as a used personal item must be applied.
So you basically say, hey, this isn't new out of the box.
Exactly. Mathematically, a camera you bought for $800 3 years ago is worth a fraction of that today, keeping you well under the $500 duty-free threshold.
So Article 150 is essentially the magic phrase to break the extortion trance. It proves you understand the mechanics of the law.
It does.
But let's play devil's advocate. Let's assume they double down. Let's say the agent ignores the printout, ignores Article 150, and says, fine, you still owe a tax, give me $200 cash right now, or I seize the bag.
That brings us to the ultimate kryptonite for a corrupt agent, the receipt trap.
The receipt trap. Tell me more.
Never, under any circumstances, hand cash directly to an agent. You demand a boleto de pago, an official tax receipt. Tell them you will gladly pay the tax, but only with a credit card at the official Bandercito window.
And just for some quick context for you listening, Bandercito is the national bank of the Army, Air Force, and Navy. It is a military-run bank branch located directly inside the airport, specifically for official government transactions.
Correct. Corrupt agents cannot pocket money that is processed through that official banking terminal. In multiple reported cases, the moment a traveler insisted on a boleto de pago to pay via credit card at Bandercito, the agent suddenly decided to, quote-unquote, waive the fine.
Wow. So the banking terminal becomes a physical, insurmountable barrier to their corruption.
Exactly. They can't skim from the official system easily.
So that's the physical barrier. But let's look at the communication barrier. In that Cabo story, at the start of the deep dive with the Altoids, they wouldn't let the traveler use his phone to call for help.
That is why you have to deploy the consular call tactic early in the interaction. You explicitly state aloud that you are contacting your consulate or embassy to report irregularities in customs valuation.
Wait, those exact words, irregularities in customs valuation, not like, hey, you were extorting me.
Yes, those exact words. Calling it extortion makes it a criminal accusation, which can provoke a really volatile reaction from the agent. Calling it an irregularity in customs valuation frames it as a bureaucratic error that requires diplomatic oversight.
That is smart.
Remember the systemic roots here. These agents are trying to quietly meet quotas or line their pockets without drawing attention to their specific station. The absolute last thing an agent wants is external diplomatic eyes scrutinizing their floor.
Right, because that threatens the whole operation.
Exactly. Bringing up the consulate frames you as a high-risk target, and they will usually back down instantly.
Okay, but let's be realistic about the human element here for a second. Sometimes the pressure is just too high. Let's say you're traveling with small children, or you have a medical condition like the traveler in Cabo, and the isolation tactic works.
It happens all the time.
You just pay the $200 to get your family out of there safely. What happens if you're forced to pay? Does paying mean the fight is over?
Paying does not mean the fight is over, but there's a massive legal trap you must avoid during the payment process itself. You must absolutely refuse what Aduana calls abbreviated procedures.
Abbreviated procedures. What does signing that actually mean legally?
To make a forced payment look legitimate on the books, agents will try to rush you into signing a voluntary payment form to expedite the process.
Oh, I see.
If you sign that document, you are legally admitting to contrabando smuggling or the omission of taxes. If you sign a confession stating you attempted to smuggle goods, it nullifies your ability to appeal the fine later.
Wow. That is a crucial distinction. Don't sign away your right to appeal just to speed up your exit.
Never sign a confession if you know your items were within your legal limits.
So, assuming you've paid but haven't signed a confession, how do we actually gather intel for a report after the fact? I read about this infamous agent Claudia at the San Jose del Cabo airport.
Right. She's come up in several reports.
Numerous travelers complained about her predatory valuations. But Claudia might just be a pseudonym she uses to avoid detection, right? If they cover their name tags or give a fake name, how do we actually file a report that has teeth?
You focus on the unchangeable logistical details. You note the physical description of the agent, the specific table number you were pulled over to, and the exact date and time.
Oh, because of the shift logs?
Precisely. Even if Claudia is a fake name they pass around, the airport administration knows exactly which human being was assigned to Table 3 at 2:15 p.m. on a Tuesday.
That makes total sense.
The shift log cross-reference is what makes your report actionable. Once you have that data, you have 3 precise legal avenues for recourse available in 2026.
Okay, let's detail the exact steps. What's the first one?
The first and most powerful is the SFP, the Secretaría de la Función Pública. This is the federal watchdog agency that specifically investigates corruption, extortion, and shakedowns by federal employees. You go to their digital complaint system, which is known as the SIDES portal.
So you completely bypass the local airport staff and go straight to the federal level.
Yes.
What does that user experience look like? Like, what evidence makes a SIDES report successful?
You log into the SIDES portal and upload your boarding pass to prove you were actually there. Then you upload a picture of the tax receipt if you were given one, and a clear description of the time, the table number, and the agent's behavior.
Got it.
By providing the time and location, you force the SFP to pull the Aduana shift logs, exposing the specific agent regardless of what name tag they wore.
Brilliant. What are the other 2 avenues?
Second, you can go directly to A&M, the National Customs Agency. You use their online complaints portal or email them directly at denuncias@anm.gov.mx to specifically report abuse of authority.
Okay, SFP and A&M, and the third.
Finally, if you are still at the airport but out of the immediate danger zone, say, you've paid and moved into the main public terminal, you can ask to speak with the OIC.
OIC.
The Organo Interno de Control. They are the specific, independent, investigative body for the airport's administration. They function completely separately from the floor agents.
So we're essentially weaponizing their own bureaucracy against them.
That's exactly what you're doing.
I love that. The agents want a shadowy, informal shakedown in a blind spot where you feel isolated and panicked. You win by dragging the interaction into the harsh light of documentation.
You formalize the informal.
Yes. Demanding official Banjo-Cedar receipts, mathematically citing Article 150 for depreciation, noting table numbers for shift logs, and utilizing federal reporting portals like SID. It changes the entire power dynamic.
It really does. You transform from a vulnerable tourist into a major bureaucratic liability, and they do not want to deal with that.
Let's quickly recap this essential survival toolkit for you listening. First, disrupt their timeline by carrying the physical SAT regulation printout. Second, cite Article 150 to insist on the depreciated value of your used electronics.
Right.
Third, demand a boleta de pago to pay by credit card at the military-run Banjo-Cedar window. Never hand over cash. And finally, if you are forced to pay, do not sign an abbreviated confession. Log the time and table number, and hit the SFP and A&M portals to report the bad actors using their own shift logs against them.
This raises an important question, though. Why should we go through all this trouble?
Because it's exhausting, frankly.
It is, but it is because knowledge is a shield. By understanding the mechanisms of the law and the precise reporting steps, you aren't just protecting your own wallet, you are actively helping to dismantle a predatory system that relies entirely on silence.
That's a great point.
People like the paisanos returning to Sinaloa with Christmas gifts, or tourists doing legitimate business in Cancun, They shouldn't have to factor federal extortion into their travel budget.
I completely agree. And it leaves me with one final thought for you to mull over.
Okay.
If you look at immigration checkpoints in Mexico, they have rapidly modernized over the last few years. They're using digital e-gates, they're scanning passports, minimizing human interaction, and basically eliminating corruption at that specific point of entry.
That's true. Immigration is very streamlined now.
Yet, Aduana, the customs side, still heavily relies on chaotic manual bag checks and highly subjective human valuations. Why is the revenue collecting arm of the border so incredibly resistant to digitization? When you look at the chaos, the manual bag checks, the arbitrary fines, is that manual chaos a bug in the system? Or is it a feature designed to keep those cinnamon Altoids looking like a lucrative opportunity?
That is a question definitely worth asking the next time you see that red light flashing at the checkpoint.
Indeed. Stay curious, stay informed, and above all, travel safely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.